They say some minds die slow. They say the deeper you dig into the earth, the more likely you are to uncover something that should have stayed buried. And out here, in the forgotten desert between Redwater Canyon and Hangman's Bluff, there's a mine no man has dared touch in 20 years. Locals call it the Ghost Mine, because every time the wind sweeps through those tunnels, it sounds like someone whispering your name. And on a cold, starless night in 1884, 5 outlaws rode toward it. Chasing gold, chasing glory, chasing death. Dustwater was the kind of town that never slept, because the wind wouldn't let it. It howled down the one crooked street, lifting curtains, rattling signs, and carrying with it every rumor, lie, and half-truth the West wanted forgotten. Inside the Snakebite Saloon, lantern light swayed like it was nervous. A card game was dying slow at the far table. Whiskey spilled on scarred wood, boots tapping on worn floorboards. And at the bar, alone, stood Calder Boone. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes like someone who'd buried more friends than he remembered. Men whispered that he used to be a lawman. Others swore he'd killed one. Calder didn't confirm either. He just drank quietly. Hands scarred, jaw unshaven. A man running from something he didn't talk about. But tonight, someone was looking for him. The saloon doors creaked open and a small figure stepped through. Maeve Ward. Sharp-jawed, desert sun hair, eyes too clever for a 20-year-old girl. Known across counties as the brains behind half the robberies in the territory. Though she'd never been caught. Maeve didn't waste words. She walked straight up to Calder. "You're Calder Boone?" Calder didn't look at her. "Used to be." "That'll do," she said, sliding onto the stool beside him. "I've got something worth your time." Calder sighed. "Girl, the last time someone said that, I ended up with a bullet in my leg and a preacher fainting that." Maeve grinned. "This one's cleaner. Bigger, too." Calder raised an eyebrow. "Go on." She leaned in close enough for him to smell sand and cedar on her clothes. "You ever heard of Grinning Jack McGraw?" Calder froze. Everyone in the West knew Grinning Jack. A smiling outlaw with one gold tooth. A man who robbed stagecoaches but left more jokes behind than bodies. He'd disappeared years ago. But stories. Stories said he found something in the desert. Something huge. Calder spoke quietly. "Jack's dead." Maeve shook her head. "No. He left something behind. His last map." Calder turned to her now. Really looked at her. "What kind of map?" Maeve's smile widened. "The map. To the Ghost Mine." Silence fell between them like the world stopped breathing. The Ghost Mine wasn't just a rumor. It was a curse. 20 years ago, miners claimed they struck a vein of gold so pure it shimmered like water. But days later, men started dying one by one. No cause. No wounds. Just fear. And those voices people swore they heard in the tunnels. The mine was sealed. Everyone who went back afterward never returned. Calder scoffed. "You're chasing fairy tales." Maeve slid a folded paper across the bar. A map. A real one. Faded, torn, but the handwriting was unmistakable. McGraw's crooked scrawl. "You think Jack went in," she said softly. "But he didn't. He mapped the entrance. The side tunnels. The vault. He marked where the gold was stored before the place was abandoned." Calder stared at the map. He didn't believe in ghosts. But he did believe in bad men. And something was bothering him. "Why me?" he asked. Maeve hesitated. "Because I need muscle. Someone who knows tunnels. Someone who can handle whatever's in there, human or not." Calder folded the map and pushed it back. "Get somebody else." Maeve didn't reach for it. Instead she spoke quietly. "I know about your brother, Calder." The world around him blurred. You shut your mouth, he growled. Maeve didn't. He died searching for something that'd fix your family's debts. You think he left nothing? He did. She slid another slip of paper across the bar. Calder's hands shook as he opened it. His brother's handwriting. 4 words. Don't trust the mine. Calder stood up so fast his stool fell back. Where did you get this? Maeve's voice softened. From Jack. He rode with your brother the last months before he vanished. They both knew something in that mine scared them more than outlaws ever could. Calder swallowed. The ghost mine had taken his brother. And now? Maybe. It could give him answers. Maybe even justice. He closed his fist. What's the plan? Maeve exhaled relief. We ride at dawn. But we'll need a crew. Calder nodded. Who else? Maeve listed them one by one. Silas Kane, a sharpshooter with a trembling hand and a past he couldn't outrun. Dorian Pike, a dynamite expert who laughed at explosions like they were jokes. Old River Tom, tracker, ex-guide, half-blind, half-sober, but knew the desert better than God did. Calder grimaced. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Maeve smirked. That's a heist, Calder. He sighed. Fine. But I'm Leodin. If this goes wrong, you listen to me. Maeve nodded. So it's a deal? Calder stared at the creased note from his brother. Yeah, he whispered. It's a deal. The next morning, the 5 of them met at the edge of town. The desert stretched out before them. Silent, endless, shimmering with heat like a beast breathing slow. Calder looked at the group. Silas adjusting his rifle nervously. Dorian tossing dynamite sticks like candy. River Tom chewing on dry sagebrush. Maeve tightening her saddle straps with sharp focus. What are you all looking at? She snapped. Calder mounted his horse. Death, River Tom muttered. And it's looking back. They rode out. The ghost mine waited. And before sundown, it would claim its first victim. The sun climbed slow and heavy over the horizon as the 5 riders pushed deeper into the desert. It wasn't a kind heat. It pressed against the skin like hot iron, and even the horses breathed hard through it. Calder Boone rode at the front, eyes scanning every dune and ridge. Behind him, the others followed in a crooked line, like a string of bad decisions. Maeve Ward kept glancing at the map in her hand, its edges fluttering in the wind. Silas Kane rode silently, eyes flicking from shadow to shadow as though he expected something to leap out. Dorian Pike hummed a tune so cheerful it felt wrong in a place like this. And old River Tom. Well, Tom talked to himself. Or maybe to someone, something, Calder couldn't see. Around noon, Maeve pointed at a cluster of blackened rocks jutting out of the sand. That's the landmark Jack mentioned. From here, the mine is only a few miles north. Calder frowned. Those rocks look burnt. Everything out here looks burnt, Dorian said with a chuckle. No, Calder replied, dismounting. This is different. He knelt, touching one of the stones. The surface was scorched, freshly. Too fresh for something abandoned for 20 years. Silas's voice trembled slightly. Calder, you think someone's been here recently? Calder didn't answer. He didn't need to. River Tom leaned down from his saddle, sniffing the air like a coyote. Machem, 3 horses passed through here. Not long ago. Maybe a day or 2. Maeve stiffened. Maybe treasure hunters? River Tom shook his head. No treasure hunter rides without supplies. These tracks, these riders traveled light. No packs. No canteens. Calder rose slowly. Then whoever they are, they ain't looking for gold. Maeve's voice dropped. Then what are they looking for? Calder looked north, the direction of the mine. Us. A chill crawled up everyone's spine, even with the blistering heat. They pushed onward. By late afternoon, long shadows stretched across the land, turning the desert into a skeleton of black bones. River Tom suddenly rode ahead, raising a shaking hand. "There," he rasped. "See it?" The entrance to the ghost mine appeared at the base of a jagged cliff, dark, gaping, almost breathing. Even Calder, who didn't believe in ghosts, felt something cold slither down his spine. The wooden beams around the entrance were snapped, not broken from age, but ripped outward as though something had forced its way out. Silas stepped off his horse, wiping sweat from his brow. "I don't like this, Calder. Mines collapse in. Not out." Maeve swallowed. "Maybe the wind." "The wind ain't that strong," Tom whispered. Dorian grinned nervously. "Well, we're here now. Let's see if ghosts like company." Calder dismounted and approached the entrance. Someone had carved a message into one of the beams. Crude. Messy. Deep. "Turn back." Silas shuddered. "Who'd write something like that?" River Tom answered softly. "Someone who wanted to leave war." He paused. "Or someone who wanted to scare folks away." Calder scanned the area. Tracks. Footprints. Fresh. Too fresh. Someone had been here hours before. Maeve whispered, "Calder, what do we do?" Calder's voice was calm, but his grip on his revolver tightened. "We go inside. Quietly. No noise unless you have to." He looked directly at Maeve. "And stay behind me." Maeve nodded, her confidence finally cracking a little. The moment they stepped inside, the world changed. The air grew colder, unnaturally so. The light dimmed as though the sun refused to enter. The smell of earth and old sorrow filled their noses. Maeve held a lantern high. The flame flickered violently, like it didn't want to stay lit. Silas swallowed hard. "It's quiet. Too quiet. No wind. No echo. Just an endless, suffocating silence." Even Dorian stopped joking. Their footsteps crunched on the old rails that once carried mine carts. Their lanterns cast long shadows that stretched and shrank as they moved. Calder raised a hand. "Stop." They froze. A soft sound drifted down the tunnel. A whisper. Indistinct. Cold. Like someone speaking through water. Silas's hand shook around his rifle. "Who's there?" he croaked. No answer. The whispering faded again into silence. Maeve's voice trembled a little. "Maybe the heirs." "Shoo," Calder hissed. He motioned River Tom forward. Tom knelt, lantern close to the ground. Tracks. 3 sets of boot prints. Recent. "They went deeper," Tom said. Calder nodded. "Then so do we." The group moved carefully, deeper into the mine. The tunnels twisted like broken ribs. Rusting tools littered the ground. Old mining helmets sat half buried in dust. Suddenly, Maeve gasped. "Calder, look." A shape slumped against the wall. A man. Dead. His face pale, twisted in terror. Eyes wide open. No wounds. No blood. Just fear. He looked like he died mid-scream. Silas stumbled back. "God, what happened to him?" Maeve's voice shook. "Is this one of the riders?" Calder examined the body. Fresh. Hours old. Tom sniffed the air again. Gun oil. Sweat. 3 men came down this tunnel. Only 2 left. Dorian's voice cracked as he whispered. "So, what killed him?" Calder didn't answer. Because he didn't know. But the deeper they went, the more he began to understand the truth. Something was in this mine. Something watching them. Something waiting. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber. Timbers held the ceiling like the ribs of a giant beast. The lantern light stretched across piles of equipment abandoned decades ago. The whispering returned. Soft. Almost like singing. Maeve tightened her grip on the lantern. "Calder, that's not wind. And it's not human. Dorian stepped closer to the tunnel wall, touching it gently. Hear that? It's vibrating. The wall was humming, subtle but unmistakable. Silas shook his head violently. We shouldn't be here. Whatever killed that man? A new sound cut him off. A low metallic click. Everyone froze. Calder spun around. Distant. Faint. But unmistakable. A rifle being cocked. Human. Not ghost. Someone was hunting them. Calder hissed. Lanterns out. Now. Maeve blew hers out instantly. The others followed. Darkness swallowed them whole. They held their breath. Another sound echoed softly. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. Someone else was in the mine. Someone real. Someone deadly. Calder whispered. They're not ghosts. Silas trembled. Then who are they? Calder's voice was ice. Men who didn't want us finding something here. A voice echoed from the dark. Calm. Cold. Familiar. Well. Calder Boone. Should have known you'd come poking around. Maeve stiffened. Silas gasped. River Tom muttered a curse. Calder's jaw clenched. He knew that voice. Everyone in the West did. It belonged to a man rumored to be dead. A man as ruthless as wildfire. Elias Crowe. Calder whispered. Damn it, it's Crowe's gang. The real danger wasn't the ghosts. It was the men waiting in the darkness with rifles aimed at their hearts. The darkness inside the mine felt heavier now. Not just empty, but occupied. The air carried tension sharp enough to cut skin. Calder Boone stood still, muscles coiled, breath silent. His hand hovered over his revolver. But he didn't dare move. Because somewhere in the blackness of the abandoned chamber, Elias Crowe and his gang were watching. Calder spoke first. You're supposed to be dead, Crowe. A low chuckle echoed. Deep. Amused. Supposed to be. Boot steps scraped against stone. You'd be surprised how often I dodge expectations. Maeve Ward whispered to Calder, barely audible. You know him? Calder's voice was a stone dropping down a well. I arrested him once. Didn't stick, clearly. Crowe laughed again. Oh, it stuck all right, hurt my pride something fierce. So imagine my delight finding you wandering into my little operation. Silas tightened his grip on his rifle, hands shaking. Calder growled, What are you doing in this mine, Crowe? What do you think? Crowe replied. Gold. Same as you. Maeve hissed, This is our find. We have McGraw's map. Crowe's tone sharpened. Jack McGraw was a fool. He thought this mine was haunted. He was half right. A cold silence fell. Calder asked, Where's the rest of your men? Crowe answered with a smile in his voice. Closer than you'd like. A lantern sparked to life on the far side of the chamber. Then another. Then a third. The room filled with a dim, ominous glow revealing 3 riflemen aiming directly at Calder's crew from the raised ledges above. Maeve gasped softly. Silas trembled. River Tom whispered a prayer. Dorian muttered, Well, that ain't ideal. Calder remained calm. Crowe, you don't need to do this. Crowe stepped into the lantern light. Tall, lean, with a scar slicing through one eyebrow and eyes that looked like they'd forgotten softness. His coat was torn, dusty. And on his hip hung the same revolver Calder once took from him. Crowe smiled. Don't take it personal, Boone. Right place, wrong time. He raised a hand. Boys. But before he could finish, a sound tore through the chamber. Boom. Not gunfire. Not dynamite. A deep, rumbling growl from the earth itself. The walls shook violently. Dust rained down. Wooden supports snapped. Maeve screamed, "Cave in." Calder grabbed her arm and shoved her behind a boulder. Crowe swore loudly. "Hold your fire. Hold." The ceiling collapsed on one of his riflemen, burying him in an instant. Another scrambled, stumbling backward as rocks crashed around him. The lanterns shattered. Darkness swallowed everything again. Screams. Shouts. Chaos. Calder's voice cut through the noise. "Move! Everyone move!" He pulled Maeve toward a side tunnel. Silas scrambled after them, coughing. Dorian dragged River Tom out of the falling debris. Behind them, Crowe roared. "Boone! Get back here!" But Calder didn't stop. The mine had chosen its moment. Now it was trying to bury them all. The side passage twisted sharply, forcing the group into a narrow corridor barely wide enough for two. Their lantern had gone out in the collapse. Only a faint, unnatural pale glow leaked from somewhere deeper inside. Silas wheezed, What is that light?" Maeve shook her head nervously. "I don't know." River Tom whispered, "The mine's alive." "I told you. I told all of you." Dorian grabbed his shoulder. "Shut up, Tom. You're scaring the girl." Maeve snapped back, "I'm not scared." But her voice cracked on the last word. Calder steadied her with a hand. "We keep moving. No stopping." They followed the faint glow deeper until the tunnel widened into a circular chamber. And there, in the center, was the source of the light. Not a lantern. Not a fire. Gold. Raw veins of it embedded in the rock. Glowing faintly as if the stone itself breathed. Maeve stepped forward in awe. "Calder, this is more gold than 50 towns combined." Silas whispered, "Holy hell." Even Dorian was speechless. River Tom knelt, touching the glowing ore gently, almost reverently. "It shouldn't glow," he murmured. "Gold don't do that." Calder's eyes narrowed. "Then something else is mixed in." Maeve turned toward him. "Whatever it is, it's worth millions." Her voice trembled with excitement. "We found it, Calder. Jack McGraw was right." Silas approached the far wall. "Look. Pickaxes. Old helmets. They were digging right here." Dorian frowned. "Then why'd they stop? Why'd they seal the mine?" River Tom answered, his voice soft as dust. "Because after they dug here, the whispering started." Everyone froze. Maeve swallowed. "Tom, don't." He continued anyway, eyes wide and distant. Miners heard voices. Saw shadows that weren't theirs. Thought it was the gold talking. He pointed at the glowing ore. But it wasn't the gold. Silas whispered shakily. "Then what was it?" Tom's answer was barely audible. "A man." Maeve blinked. "What man?" Tom turned his lantern toward the opposite wall. There, scratched into the stone, were words written in a trembling hand. "He is still here." Maeve stepped back quickly. Silas cursed under his breath. Dorian's jaw clenched. Calder scanned the room tensely. "We're not alone." A sudden whisper drifted across the chamber. "Soft. Slow. Close. I warned you." Maeve jumped. "Who said that?" No answer. The whisper came again. "Turn back." This time, it seemed to come from everywhere at once. Silas backed against the wall. "Calder, there's something here." "Something wrong." Calder tightened his grip on his revolver. "Everyone stay close. Don't break formation." But River Tom wasn't listening. He was staring at the glowing ore, transfixed. "Machem, he's real. The man in the mine. He never left. He..." A shadow shifted behind him. Fast. Silent. Calder's eyes snapped wide. "Tom. Move." But it was too late. Something lunged forward and dragged River Tom into the dark. Maeve screamed. Dorian shouted his name. Silas dropped his rifle in terror. Calder sprinted toward the darkness, firing blindly. Tom! Tom! But only his own echo answered him. The whispering grew louder. Hungry. Triumphant. Maeve clutched Calder's arm, shaking violently. This isn't Crowe, this isn't bandits. Calder, someone else is in here. Calder stared into the black tunnel where Tom disappeared. His voice was cold steel. I know. Silas stammered, what do we do now? Calder turned to them, jaw tight, eyes burning. We find Tom. We find the thing that took him. And we find the truth this mind tried to bury. Behind them, the whispering grew clearer. Words forming from the echo. You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come. Maeve grabbed Calder's arm. Calder, something is hunting us. Something that knows these tunnels better than any man ever could. Calder exhaled slowly. Then we hunted back. Night fell over Black Hollow like a curtain of ink. The wind died. The desert held its breath. And deep inside the ghost mine, 3 broken souls stood in the belly of a forgotten world, surrounded by gold they'd never live long enough to spend. The lantern's flame trembled as if it feared the darkness more than the men did. Silas Crowe, bleeding, furious, desperate, stood between Nora Quinn and Wyatt Marsh, his revolver shaking with the weight of every betrayal his life had ever held. Nora's eyes glistened. Wyatt's chest heaved with pain. Silas's hand hovered like a viper ready to strike. The shaft groaned overhead. Something in the earth shifted. But the most dangerous thing in that mine wasn't the gold, or the traps, or the legends. It was the truth finally rising to the surface. Silas aimed at Wyatt first. You always were too good for your own damn boots, he snarled. You should have turned around when the sheriff chased us off this land. You should have stayed a schoolteacher. But no, you had to be the hero. Wyatt swallowed. I never wanted to be a hero, Silas. I just didn't want to die a thief. Silas barked out a broken laugh. You think you can choose that? You think any of us get to walk away clean? Nora stepped forward. Silas, the mine's collapsing. We don't have much time. You shoot him, and none of us makes it out. Silas's eyes twitched to the shifting ceiling. Dust rained from above. The gold chamber trembled again. But instead of lowering the gun, Silas raised it to Nora. You're the worst mistake I ever made, he whispered. Her breath hitched. Not in fear. In heartbreak. Before Silas could pull the trigger, the mine let out a sound no living thing should ever hear. A scream. A long metal shriek that rolled through the tunnels, deep, ancient, angry. The rails twisted. The beams bowed. The mine was waking up. Or so Silas believed. A beam cracked overhead. Wyatt lunged forward, not at Silas, but at Nora. He shoved her aside just as the support beam gave out, crashing down where she had been standing a heartbeat before. The explosion of dust blinded all 3. Nora hit the ground hard, coughing for breath. Silas staggered back, his revolver slipping from his hand. Wyatt was buried up to his torso, pinned by jagged timbers. Nora crawled to him. No, 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 Wyatt. He tried to smile. Told you. I'd get you out of this. Silas blinked through the dust cloud, stunned, confused. Not because of the collapse. But because for the first time, he saw the man he'd once called a brother. Wyatt strained. Nora, take my knife. Cut the rope off that winch. If we can pull this beam back. But a second collapse rumbled through the chamber. Nora froze. Silas froze. Wyatt looked up. The ceiling was coming down. Silas could have run. He should have run. But something inside him cracked, something old, something buried under years of greed and anger. He grabbed the abandoned winch line, hooked the rope around the fallen beam, and threw his full weight backward. Don't just sit there, he screamed at Nora. Pull! She rushed beside him. The rope strained. The beam groaned. Wyatt, she cried. Stay with me. He gritted his teeth. I'm not going anywhere. Silas roared as he pulled, veins bulging, face red. The beam shifted. Just enough. Wyatt dragged himself free, blood running down his leg, gasping in agony. Nora helped him up. Silas collapsed to his knees. For the first time the entire night, he looked defeated. Wyatt stepped toward him. Sil, we can leave together. Nobody else has to die today. Silas laughed bitterly. You don't understand, do you? This mine, this gold, it's the only thing I ever had. The only thing I ever beat the world to. You walk out with me, they'll take it. They'll take everything. They won't, Wyatt said. I won't tell anyone what's here. That's the problem, Silas whispered. I don't believe you. He reached for a second gun tucked inside his coat. Nora screamed. Wyatt grabbed her. The mine exploded above them. The floor buckled. The ceiling collapsed. The chamber caved inward like a dying beast. A tidal wave of rock swallowed Silas Crowe. His scream was cut off instantly. Nora and Wyatt sprinted for the exit tunnel as the ghost mine devoured itself. The tunnel shook like thunder. Rocks crashed down behind them. The lantern flickered out, leaving only slivers of moonlight bleeding through cracks in the mountain. Keep moving! Wyatt shouted. Nora pulled him along, her arm locked around his waist as his wounded leg faltered. Behind them the ghost mine roared, collapsing chamber by chamber. A final support beam snapped. The tunnel caved in. The exit grew smaller. 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 Then, they burst out into the night. Both stumbled to the ground as the mine behind them sank inward with a monstrous groan, leaving a plume of dust rising to the sky like a funeral pyre. Silas Crowe was gone. And the ghost mine was finally dead. Wyatt lay in the dirt, staring up at the stars. Nora knelt beside him, brushing dust from his face. You kept your promise, she whispered. You got us out. Wyatt exhaled. Barely. You saved me. He turned toward her with a weary smile. You saved me first. For a long moment they just sat there, listening to the desert wind, letting the terror drift away like smoke. Then Nora reached into Wyatt's shirt pocket. A small, jagged rock glimmered faintly in the moonlight. Gold. Not much. Barely enough to fill a thimble. But proof of what they survived. She placed it in Wyatt's palm. Take it, she said softly. Not as treasure. As a reminder. He looked at her, emotion deep in his eyes. A reminder of what? That even in the darkest places, we found a way out. At sunrise, two silhouettes walked out of the desert. One limping, one supporting him. Both covered in dust and carrying a single shard of gold. The townsfolk of Black Hollow stared. Sheriff Bramwell rode up, suspicion thick in his eyes. Where's Silas Crowe? Wyatt paused. Nora tightened her grip on his arm. Wyatt answered calmly. Buried where he chose to be. The sheriff studied them both, then nodded slowly. Some men, he knew better than to chase. Nora and Wyatt walked past him without another word. They didn't return to the mine. They never saw the gold again. But the story? That didn't die. Within a month, folks everywhere whispered about the heist of the ghost mine. About the outlaw who vanished. The man and the woman who escaped the earth's jaws. And the gold that cursed all who touched it. Some say Silas's ghost still wanders the depths. Some say the mine reopens its tunnels on moonless nights. Some say the gold still calls out to greedy hearts. But Nora? Wyatt? They don't care. They walked away from the legend. They walked toward something better. Something human. Something real.